I can't do this anymore, Ryan. Her voice cracked, but her eyes didn't. They were cold, sharp, like she had already made peace with this decision. I stood in our tiny living room, holding the same coffee mug she'd gifted me on our second anniversary, the one that said love is enough. I guess it wasn't. Do what? I asked quietly. My words sounded weak, like even my voice had given up on me. Pretend, she snapped. Pretend that this life, this small life, is enough for me. I tried to meet her eyes, but she was already looking past me, scanning the apartment like it was something she wanted to erase. Lena, I said softly, we're doing our best. Things take time. Time. She scoffed. You've been saying that for years. You talk about dreams, about starting your own company, about changing the world, but all I see is a man too scared to move. Her words hit harder than I expected. Too scared. I repeated. Yes, she said, voice rising. Too scared, too simple, too small-minded. You dream in whispers, Ryan. Daniel dreams in action. The name tasted like poison. Daniel? She crossed her arms. At least he believes in something real. He's not stuck fixing broken laptops for minimum wage while talking about changing the world. So that's it? I asked, my voice trembling. You're leaving me for him. I'm leaving you for myself, she said, but her eyes betrayed her. Daniel just showed me what life could be. What you could never give. I let out a dry laugh. You mean what money could give? She didn't deny it. There was a silence, long enough for the sound of the clock to feel like mockery. I looked around at the life we had built, the cracked tiles, the dim light, the pile of unpaid bills. It wasn't much. But it was honest. You once told me, I said, that you loved me because I made you feel safe. She hesitated. I did. What changed? Her voice softened for a moment. I realized I don't want safety, Ryan. I want more. More what? More everything, she whispered. More life. More excitement. More worth. I stepped closer. And you think money gives you worth? Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed her bag, the one I'd saved up 2 months' salary to buy. Daniel's waiting downstairs, she said. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Harder? I almost laughed. You're walking out on me, Lena. It doesn't get harder than that. She turned away. You'll understand someday. As she walked to the door, I asked, do you really think I'm a disappointment? She stopped. For a brief second, I thought she might take it back. Then she whispered, I didn't marry a dreamer, Ryan. I married a disappointment. And just like that, she was gone. I followed her outside, not to stop her, just to see how the story ended. The city lights flickered off the glossy hood of Daniel's car. He was leaning against it, smirking like he'd already won. Ready? He asked her. She nodded, not even glancing at me. I walked up beside them, ignoring his smug grin. Take care of her, I said flatly. Daniel chuckled. Don't worry. I know how to treat a woman right. I looked him dead in the eye. Then I hope you never find out how it feels when she leaves. He frowned, but I didn't stay to see his reaction. I turned back toward the building, the night air biting through my shirt. The engine roared, and as they drove off, a part of me wanted to shout, to beg, to break something, but I didn't. I just stood there, watching their taillights fade into the distance until they were swallowed by the city. My heart didn't break. It burned. I went back upstairs and sat on the couch where her perfume still lingered. I stared at the empty space where her shoes used to be. It wasn't just loneliness, it was humiliation. Love without respect isn't love at all. It's surrender. I whispered to the silence, you didn't just leave me, Lena. You freed me. The next morning, I packed a single suitcase. A few clothes, my laptop, my father's old watch, and a notebook full of half-written dreams. As I zipped it shut, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time, I didn't see the man she saw, the simple, small-minded failure. I saw someone waiting to be reborn. Downstairs, Mrs. Grant, the landlady, saw me leaving. You moving out already, Ryan? Yeah, I said with a small smile. It's time. She gave me a sympathetic nod. You're a good man. Don't let heartbreak make you bitter. Don't worry, I replied. It won't make me bitter. It'll make me better. As I stepped into the street, the city felt bigger than ever, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I was hungry. I looked up at the sky, the sunrise just breaking through the clouds. One day, I whispered, she'll see what simplicity can build. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew one thing, I wasn't coming back as the man she left. And somewhere deep inside, I felt the first spark of something dangerous, something beautiful, purpose. The room above the mechanic's shop smelled like burnt oil and dust. The floor creaked with every step, and the single bulb flickered like it couldn't decide whether to live or die, kind of like me. Every night after work, I sat by the window with my battered notebook. Pages full of numbers, sketches, ideas, dreams written in ink that no one believed in. Except maybe me. One night, while sipping the cheapest coffee I could afford, a voice said, "That notebook looks like it's been through a war." I looked up. She was standing behind the counter, messy bun, tired smile, and eyes that looked like they'd seen struggle too. "It has," I said. "I'm rebuilding my life in there." She raised an eyebrow. "Rebuilding? That sounds dramatic. What happened, your empire collapse?" I smirked. "Something like that. My marriage." "Ouch." She winced. "So, what's in the book, revenge plans or business ideas?" "Both, maybe," I said, flipping it open. "Mostly ideas. How to build something from nothing." She leaned over the counter, curiosity softening her tone. "Let me see." I hesitated. No one had ever asked before. But something about her felt genuine. I slid the notebook toward her. Her eyes scanned the pages. "You're either crazy or brilliant." I chuckled. "I've been called both." She smiled. "I'm Sophia. And for what it's worth, I think you're onto something." Her words caught me off guard. It had been months since anyone believed in me. "You really think so?" "I do," she said, handing the notebook back. "You've got a fire most people lose after failure. Don't let it die." That night, I walked home feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Days turned into weeks. Between the noise of car engines below and the smell of grease in the air, I worked odd jobs, studied business online, and saved every penny. Sophia and I talked every evening after her shift. One night, she said, "You should meet someone, a customer who comes by here. Old guy, runs a company that's falling apart. You might learn something from him." "Learn something?" I asked. "From a failing businessman?" She grinned. "From someone who's failed and survived. There's a difference." The next evening, she introduced me. "Ryan, meet Mr. Collins." The man looked like wisdom wrapped in wrinkles, sharp eyes behind thin glasses, steady hands despite his age. "So, you're the dreamer she keeps talking about," he said. "I guess so," I replied. "Though I'm still figuring out how to make dreams pay rent." He chuckled. "Good answer. Sit." We sat outside the cafe as the streetlights flickered on. "What do you want, Ryan?" he asked. "I want to build something," I said. "Something that lasts. Not for money, but for meaning." He studied me for a moment. "And what have you built so far?" Mostly mistakes. That made him smile. Good. Mistakes are expensive teachers, but they never forget their lessons. I leaned forward. You think success can come from someone who's lost everything? He nodded slowly. Son, real wealth doesn't begin with luck. It begins with endurance. You can lose everything, but if you don't quit, the world runs out of ways to stop you. Those words stayed with me. A week later, he called me to his office, a crumbling building with flickering lights and dust-covered desks. Welcome to Collins Manufacturing, he said, spreading his arms like a proud host showing off ruins. I looked around. Looks like you've seen better days. Exactly why I need people who still believe in better days, he said. You in? I didn't even hesitate. I'm in. From that day on, my life found rhythm again. I arrived early, left late, and learned everything I could: accounting, logistics, repair, negotiation. I failed, fixed, and failed again. But every failure felt like forward motion. Sophia dropped by often, bringing coffee and encouragement. You look exhausted, she'd say, handing me a cup. I'm alive, I'd reply with a grin. Mr. Collins watched me struggle through every challenge with quiet satisfaction. One evening, he said, you remind me of myself when I started. Except you have something I didn't: pain. Pain? I asked. He nodded. Pain shapes purpose. Without it, people drift. With it, they build. I thought of Lena. Of Daniel. Of that night she drove away. Then I've got all the purpose I need, I said. Months passed. Slowly, the numbers started to turn. The company wasn't dying anymore, it was breathing. Mr. Collins called me into his office one evening. You've done well, Ryan, he said. If you keep this up, you'll run this place one day. Run it? I repeated, half joking. I thought I was just here to learn. Learning and leading aren't that different, he said. They both start with listening. As I walked out of his office, Sophia was waiting by the door. So? She asked. I smiled. He said I might run this place someday. She grinned. Told you. Crazy or brilliant, maybe both. That night, lying in my tiny room, I opened my notebook again. But this time, I didn't see broken plans. I saw blueprints of possibility. I whispered to the darkness, ashes can build again. And for the first time, I believed it. The basement smelled like damp metal and old dreams. The walls sweated, the lights flickered, and my laptop hummed like it was alive. I didn't care. That tiny, cracked room was where Revive Tech was born. Eli looked up from his cluttered desk, wires hanging like vines around him. You sure this is legal? He asked, tapping away at the keyboard. As legal as ambition gets, I said, leaning over his shoulder. We're fixing people's tech problems, not building bombs. He snorted. Give me 2 sleepless nights and I could probably do that too. That's exactly why I need you, I said. You're brilliant, and slightly insane. He grinned, pushing his glasses up. And you're the calm one who keeps me out of jail. Good partnership. That's how it was: chaos and order. Fire and patience. We worked every night after my shift at Collins Manufacturing, turning broken machines into opportunities. The first customer walked in through the basement door on a rainy Thursday, a teenager with a soaked laptop. Eli frowned. You sure we're ready for walk-ins? We're never ready, I said. We just do it anyway. When the kid left, laptop fixed, $50 on the table, I remember staring at the cash. It wasn't much, but it was proof. Proof that failure wasn't final. Sophia dropped by later that night, balancing a bag of takeout. You two look like zombies, she said, handing me a sandwich. We've evolved beyond sleep, Eli muttered, his eyes glued to a circuit board. I laughed. We're building something real, Sophia. It's small, but it's ours. She looked around the room, the clutter, the flickering light, the stains on the concrete floor. It's not much, she said softly, but it feels alive. Her faith in me hadn't wavered in 3 years. Every word she said added another brick to my determination. So, she said, sitting beside me. You still think about her? I paused mid-bite. Lena? She nodded. Sometimes, I admitted. But not with pain anymore. More like, curiosity. Eli scoffed. Curiosity? Bro, she dumped you for a millionaire. You're building computers in a cave. I shot him a look. You done? He grinned. Just saying. You've leveled up your motivation. Sophia smiled faintly. Pain changes shape, doesn't it? It does, I said quietly. It becomes hunger. One evening, after Sophia left and Eli passed out at his desk, I scrolled through my old social media. Then I saw it, Lena's wedding photo. She looked radiant, glowing in a golden gown beside Daniel, who had that smug, picture-perfect smile. His hand rested on her waist, her laughter frozen in time. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could have ignored it. But I didn't. I stared. Eli stirred awake. You okay? Yeah, I said, closing the screen. Just saw a ghost wearing a diamond. He yawned. You mean your ex? Yeah. Still hurts. I shook my head. No. It's fuel. He rubbed his eyes. You're weird, man. Maybe, I said, standing up. But I'm going to build something so big that people like her will read my name on headlines instead of invitations. He blinked. That's intense. That's fire. The next morning, we filed for registration, Revive Tech Solutions. The lady at the desk asked, "What does your company do?" I smiled. We fix what people think is broken. She typed the name, stamped the form, and handed me the receipt. The paper trembled slightly in my hand. That sound, the soft thud of approval, felt like thunder. Back at the basement, I placed the document on the wall. We're official, I said. Eli raised a can of soda. To revive tech, and the idiot's crazy enough to start it. I clinked mine against his. To idiots who don't quit. Days blurred into months. We took every job that came our way, broken screens, corrupted files, dead servers. Every fix earned us a new client, every client a new story. Sophia would stop by after her cafe shifts, always bringing something, sandwiches, tea, or sometimes just silence. She'd watch us work, eyes soft, voice steady. You're different now, she said once. How so? I asked, tightening a screw. You used to talk about revenge. Now you talk about progress. I smiled. Maybe they're the same thing, one burns, the other builds. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the basement. The hum of the server was my only company. I opened my phone again, this time not to scroll, but to check our bank balance. It wasn't much, but it was growing. I whispered to myself, she chose gold, I'll build a mine. The words echoed in the silence. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt unstoppable. The pain that once hollowed me out was now the flame that lit my path. And that flame, that spark, wasn't dying anytime soon. Eli slammed his hands on the desk. You're kidding me. Neocore Systems. The same guys who crushed 3 startups last year. I didn't look up from the laptop. That's the one. They're poison, man. Everyone says their projects are nightmares. Exactly, I said, scrolling through the brief. No one wants it. That's why it's perfect for us. Eli threw his pen at the wall. Perfect. It's suicide. I leaned back. We'll either break or break through. He groaned. You always say that before something explodes. Then let's explode upward this time. He sighed, rubbing his temples. You really think we can pull this off? I don't think, I said. I know. The project was chaos, a glitch-ridden software that Neocore's own engineers had abandoned. They gave us 6 weeks. 6. Eli cursed under his breath every night. Why did you drag me into this? Because you love challenges, I said, pouring coffee into his cup. I love sleep, he muttered. Sophia would drop by, watching us surrounded by half-eaten noodles and wires. You two look like prisoners, she said. Willing ones, I replied. She tilted her head. You really think Neocore will pay you fairly? They'll pay us because no one else can fix this, I said. She smiled. That's confidence. It's survival, I corrected. Week 3 nearly broke us. The servers crashed at midnight. Eli kicked the table. That's it. I'm done. I can't keep fighting code that hates me. It doesn't hate you, I said. It's just testing if you deserve to win. He glared. You and your motivational nonsense. Eli, I interrupted, you once told me chaos was your comfort zone. Prove it. He stared at me, then at the screen, and finally sighed. Fine. But when this fries my brain, you're paying for my therapy. Deal. The final week was a blur, caffeine, arguments, and breakthroughs. When the system finally ran without errors, Eli stood there in disbelief. It's stable, he whispered. We actually did it. I exhaled slowly. Send the final report. He clicked send and collapsed onto the floor. I can't feel my hands. Congratulations, I said, grinning. You're officially a legend. He smiled weakly. If Neocore actually pays us, I'll tattoo your quote on my arm. 2 days later, my phone rang. This is Linda from Neocore, the voice said. We've reviewed your work. Impressive. You exceeded our in-house team's performance by 20%. Thank you, I said, trying to sound calm. We'd like to discuss a long-term contract. After I hung up, I just stood there, silent, stunned, alive. Eli noticed my expression. Bad news? I laughed. We're getting another project. He blinked. Wait, they liked it. They loved it. He jumped up. I take back everything I said about you being insane. I laughed harder. Don't. Insanity built this company. Word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, Revive Tech wasn't the scrappy team in a basement, it was a name whispered in meeting rooms. Investors started calling. Small business owners wanted consultations. We were booked for weeks. One morning, Eli looked at me and said, "You're wearing a suit." Yeah, I said, adjusting my tie. First investor meeting. He snorted. You clean up nice. Don't forget the smell of solder, boss man. Never, I said, smiling. At the cafe that evening, Sophia slid a cup of coffee across the table. So, Mr. CEO, she teased. How's the empire? I chuckled. Still tiny. But it's breathing on its own now. You've changed, she said softly. Hopefully for the better. You walk differently. Talk differently. I shrugged. Maybe confidence just fits better now. She raised her cup. To the man who rebuilds from ashes. I met her eyes, clinking my cup against hers. To the woman who believed I could. Eli barged in just then, waving a newspaper. We're mentioned here. Revive Tech revives the impossible. That's the headline. Sophia laughed. You're famous. I grinned. Barely. That night, after everyone left, I sat in the office, our new office, not the basement. The desks were clean, the logo hung proudly on the wall, and the hum of servers felt like applause. I looked out the window at the city lights. We did it, I whispered. But inside, something stirred, a familiar fire, quiet but fierce. Eli's voice echoed in my mind, "You can rest now." No. Not yet. Because this wasn't the destination, just the start of the climb. Sophia's toast still rang in my ears, "To the man who rebuilds from ashes." She didn't know how true that was. The ashes weren't gone, I just learned how to breathe through them. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was chasing dignity. And dignity, I realized, wasn't given, it was earned, line by line, deal by deal, code by code. When the clock hit midnight, I stood, loosened my tie, and smiled at my reflection in the glass. "Break or break through," I murmured. The reflection smiled back. And this time, I knew, I'd already broken through. The conference hall shimmered with glass, suits, and shallow smiles. I'd been invited as one of the keynote speakers for innovation in digital systems, a long way from that basement 3 years ago. As I checked my notes backstage, a familiar voice floated from behind me. Laughter, soft, hollow, and hauntingly familiar. I turned. Lena. She was surrounded by people, but somehow looked alone. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Daniel Graves stood beside her, one hand in his pocket, the other gripping his phone like it was more important than her presence. For a second, I forgot to breathe. "Ryan?" Her voice trembled slightly as I stepped forward. I nodded. "Mrs. Graves." The title landed heavy in the air between us. I saw her flinch before she hid it behind a practiced smile. "It's been a while," she said. "Long enough," I replied. Daniel finally looked up, smirk curling. "Wait a second, you're the tech guy, right? Used to live in some cheap apartment near West Street?" I met his gaze evenly. "I used to. Now I run Revive Tech." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh. I've heard that name. Good. It means I'm doing something right." He chuckled. "Still fixing computers, huh?" I smiled faintly. "No. I fix broken systems now, even the ones run by men like you." His smirk faltered, just slightly. Lena looked between us, tension clear in her eyes. We stood there, pretending it was small talk, but every word was a quiet war. "So," Lena said finally, clutching her purse tighter, "you're a CEO now?" "Something like that," I replied. Revive Tech specializes in advanced system recovery. We turn failures into functioning success stories. She gave a tight nod. "That's impressive." "Thank you," I said. "You always did underestimate simplicity." Her eyes softened. "Ryan, Daniel cut in sharply. "We should get to our seats, darling. The speeches are about to start." "Of course," she murmured. I looked at her wedding ring, heavy, gleaming, but lifeless. "It was good seeing you both," I said. Daniel grinned, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm sure it was." During my speech, I could feel her gaze. Every time I looked across the crowd, her eyes darted away. I spoke about resilience, about failure being the best investor you'll ever meet. "Every broken system teaches us where strength truly lives," I said into the mic, "and sometimes, what breaks us becomes what builds us." The audience applauded, but I saw only her face, pale, still, and searching. Afterward, as I stepped down from the stage, Lena approached me alone. "Ryan," she said softly, "that speech, it sounded personal." "It was," I replied. "Everything I've built came from what I lost." She hesitated. "You mean, us?" I met her eyes. "No. I meant me. Her lips parted like she wanted to say more, but Daniel appeared, tapping her shoulder. "We're leaving." Lena nodded quickly, but before turning away, she whispered, "You've changed." I smiled. That's what pain does. As they walked off, I caught a fragment of their argument. "You didn't tell me he was that Ryan," Daniel muttered. "I didn't think it mattered," she snapped. "It matters when he's standing on stage while I'm sitting in the audience." Her voice cracked. "He earned that stage, Daniel." He glared. "Don't forget who pays for the seat you're sitting in." They disappeared into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Not joy. Not revenge. Just closure creeping in quietly. Eli found me later at the booth. "Dude, why do you look like you saw a ghost?" I gave a half smile. "Because I did. Old flame. Old lesson." He laughed. "That's deep. You giving TED Talks now?" "Maybe someday," I said. "But today, I just needed to say one line." "Which one?" "I fix broken systems now, even the ones run by men like you." Eli whistled. "You actually said that to him?" "Word for word." "Man," he grinned, "you're cold." I shook my head. "No, just done." That night, as I sat in the hotel room overlooking the city, I replayed the day's encounter. Her laughter had changed, once free, now rehearsed. His arrogance was the same, but his control over her wasn't perfect anymore. I poured myself a glass of water and whispered, "Mrs. Graves." The words still carried weight, not of love or hate, but of distance. Once, I'd have done anything to be where he stood. Now, I pitied them both. Success didn't taste sweet because I'd won against them, it tasted sweet because I no longer needed to. Eli texted me, "Conference win. Investors impressed. Drinks?" I typed back, "Tomorrow." Tonight, I'm revisiting the past. But even as I wrote it, I knew I wasn't. The past had just revisited me, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. I smiled faintly, closing the curtains. Karma didn't need to roar. It just needed to show up at the right conference. And tonight, it smiled. Eli barged into my office, waving a printed email like it was a winning lottery ticket. "Ryan," he said, breathless. "You're not gonna believe this." I didn't look up from my laptop. "If it's another investor pitch, forward it to Maya." He dropped the papers on my desk. "No. You need to see this." I scanned the letterhead, Graves Tech Solutions. A partnership request. I blinked, once. Twice. "You're joking," I muttered. "Nope," Eli grinned. Straight from the mighty Daniel Graves himself. Apparently, their software security crashed after a failed system update. They're bleeding clients. Guess who the industry recommended? I leaned back slowly. Revive Tech. Exactly. Eli crossed his arms, smirking. So, Karma finally opened a Gmail account. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Not a mocking laugh, but one from disbelief and irony combined. "Of all the companies in this city," I said, "he comes to me." Eli grinned. The universe loves irony. "So, what do we do?" I stared at the proposal again, every word dripping with desperation masked as professionalism. "Accept it," Eli said, his tone mischievous. "This is poetic. The guy who mocked you for being a mechanic now needs you to keep his company from collapsing." I folded the letter carefully. "We'll accept," I said, "but under my terms." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Which are?" "I'll handle the merger personally." "Personally?" He frowned. "You sure about that?" "Completely." I met his gaze. Some repairs need to be seen, not told. A week later, I walked into Graves Tech's glass fortress. The same building that once denied me an entry-level job years ago. The receptionist greeted me with a nervous smile. Mr. Ryan Cole from Revive Tech, right? Yes, I said. I'm here for Mr. Graves. Her eyes flicked toward the elevator. He's expecting you. As the elevator climbed, I caught my reflection in the mirror, crisp suit, calm expression, steady breath. The man staring back wasn't the one who'd been left standing on the curb watching a luxury car drive away. The elevator chimed. Daniel stood by the window, arms crossed. He looked older, sharper, but not stronger. Lena sat beside his desk, fingers tangled nervously. Ryan, Daniel said with forced politeness. Appreciate you coming on such short notice. I gave a curt nod. Your system's collapse didn't leave you much choice, I assume. His jaw tightened. We had options. Not good ones, I replied evenly. Lena finally spoke. You're handling this deal yourself? Yes, I said. Business like this deserves a personal touch. Her eyes darted away. I see. Daniel gestured stiffly toward the table. Let's talk numbers. We sat. Silence hung thick as paper rustled. I spread the documents out. Our partnership terms are simple: full system evaluation, integration oversight, and data management handled solely by Revive Tech. No interference. That's a lot of control for an external partner, Daniel said. It's the control you lost when your system crashed, I replied. He exhaled sharply. You've changed. Change, I said, is the byproduct of loss. Lena looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan, this isn't personal, right? I met her eyes. If it were, I wouldn't be here. Daniel scoffed. You expect me to believe that? I smiled faintly. Believe whatever helps you sleep at night. I'm not here to settle old debts. I'm here to fix what's broken. The words hung heavy in the room, professional on the surface, personal underneath. Daniel's smirk faltered. You'll have full access to our system logs. My assistant will coordinate with your team. I'll coordinate directly, I said. Efficiency matters. He didn't like that. I could see it in the tightening of his jaw. But he nodded anyway. After the meeting, Lena followed me into the corridor. Ryan, she said softly. Why are you doing this? Doing what? I asked. Helping him. Helping us. I paused, turning slightly toward her. Because this isn't about revenge, Lena. It's about value. And you'll find that sometimes the people you underestimate end up writing your recovery plan. Her voice trembled. I didn't mean to. I stopped her. You meant every word back then. I didn't marry a dreamer, I married a disappointment. I still remember. She flinched. I was wrong. I know, I said simply. But I don't need your apology. Daniel stepped out of his office, interrupting us. Everything okay? Lena composed herself quickly. Yes. We're done. I straightened my tie. Business only, Mr. Graves, I said calmly. Let's fix what's broken. He forced a smirk. Let's hope you can. I already did, I replied. Just took a few years. Back in my car, Eli called. So. How'd it go? Did karma shake your hand? Almost, I said, starting the engine. But it looked nervous doing it. He laughed. You're enjoying this, admit it. I'm not sure if it's enjoyment, I said. It feels balanced. Poetic justice always does, Eli said. Maybe, I replied, glancing at the Graves Tech logo disappearing in the rearview mirror. But I didn't go there to gloat. Then why? I smiled faintly. Because sometimes, helping your enemy fix their mess hurts them more than any revenge ever could. That night, I reviewed their systems, watching the numbers crawl across my screen, their company's heartbeat, weak but still alive. Let's fix what's broken, I whispered again, not as a challenge, but as closure. Karma had sent the invitation. I'd simply RSVP'd. Ryan, he's trying to play you, Eli muttered, sliding the revised contract across my desk. I scanned the pages slowly. Clause 14.3, I said. Hidden profit sharing redirection. Classic Daniel move. Eli snorted. You're not going to call him out? I leaned back, a faint smile tugging at my lips. No. Let him believe he's winning. People like Daniel don't need enemies, their own greed destroys them. Weeks passed, and Daniel's confidence only grew. Every meeting, every smug handshake, he radiated arrogance. Ryan, he'd say, voice dripping with superiority, you should be grateful. This merger will put your little company on the map. My little company's already there, I'd reply evenly. You just didn't notice the map changed. He'd laugh, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. Soon, the cracks appeared. Investors whispered. Payments delayed. Revive Tekka's reports were spotless, his weren't. One night, Eli burst into my office. You have to see this. He handed me a financial statement, eyes wide. Neotrust just pulled their funding. Daniel's finished. I stared at the numbers, calm as ever. Good. Let the storm complete its work. By the end of the quarter, Graves Innovations was on its knees. Layoffs. Lawsuits. A CEO too proud to admit defeat. I received an email the next morning, property foreclosure notice, 74, Kingsley Estate. Eli chuckled behind me. You're not actually considering. Oh, I am, I interrupted, standing up. It's poetic, isn't it? When I drove through the iron gates of the mansion Lena once paraded on social media, the staff lined up, confused but polite. Welcome, Mr. Carter, the head butler said. The title hit differently. Once, I was the man Lena left behind, now, I was the man she'd underestimated. I walked through the marble foyer, my shoes echoing on the cold floor. Her laughter used to fill these halls. Now, silence ruled. Eli joined me later that evening. You really bought it, he said, glancing around. You're living in your ex's dream. No, I said quietly. I'm living in my own reality. Hers was borrowed. A few days later, a car pulled into the driveway. I didn't need to look, I knew it was her. Lena stepped out, sunglasses hiding her red-rimmed eyes. She stood frozen at the entrance before whispering, Ryan, please. I folded my arms. Mrs. Graves. What brings you here? Don't do this, she said, voice trembling. This house, it's all I have left. I motioned toward the grand staircase. Funny. You used to say all I had was too little. Please, she said again, taking a step closer. Daniel's gone. Everything's gone. I made mistakes. I stayed silent, letting her words echo in the empty space she once called home. Do you remember, she continued, her voice breaking, when I said you'd never make it without me? I looked at her steadily. I do. And I remember answering that I wasn't trying to make it without you, I was trying to make it for me. Tears streamed down her face. Please, don't take this house. Not this one. I tilted my head slightly. You once said I was too simple. I guess simplicity built this roof. She covered her face, sobbing quietly. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered the smirks, the pitying looks, the nights I spent rebuilding what she helped break. This isn't revenge, Lena, I said softly. It's symmetry. Her hands fell to her sides. So that's it. You win. There's no winning, I replied. Only learning. You taught me what pride costs. I just learned faster. She looked around one last time, at the chandelier, the portraits, the luxury that once defined her. You really have changed, she whispered. I had to, I said. Survival demands evolution. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Do you ever miss me? I smiled faintly. I miss the idea of who I thought you were. But ideas fade when reality finally speaks. Her car disappeared beyond the gates, leaving a trail of dust behind, much like the illusion she once lived in. Eli walked in minutes later. She came, huh? She did. And? She left, I said simply. He grinned. You know, you could have rubbed it in more. I don't need to, I said. The silence of her own choices is loud enough. That night, I stood on the mansion's balcony, city lights flickering in the distance. For the first time in years, the fire inside me didn't burn from anger, it glowed with quiet satisfaction. Lena had chased wealth and lost herself in the process. Daniel had tried to control everything and lost it all. Me? I just kept moving, one broken system at a time. I whispered to the wind, sometimes, karma doesn't need to shout. It just knocks politely, and signs the deed in your name. And for once, I didn't smile out of pride. I smiled because peace had finally arrived. When my assistant told me Lena was waiting downstairs, I thought it was a joke. She said it's urgent, he added. I sighed. Let her in. Moments later, she stood in my office doorway, pale, thinner, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. Ryan, she whispered. I gestured toward the chair. Sit. She hesitated before lowering herself slowly, clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her together. I didn't know where else to go, she began, voice trembling. Daniel's gone. The company, everything's gone. I leaned back, arms crossed. You're not the first to lose everything, Lena. She nodded, tears spilling. I deserve that. I deserve worse. But please, just listen. I stayed quiet. I thought I was choosing stability, she said. Daniel promised the world. I wanted security. I didn't realize what I was giving up until it was gone. I looked at her steadily. You didn't lose me because you chose him, Lena. You lost me because you stopped choosing yourself. She shook her head violently. No, I stopped believing, in you, in us, in everything that mattered. Belief isn't currency, I said quietly. You don't invest it where returns look high. You nurture it where it grows slow. Her lip quivered. You sound like you've rehearsed that. I've had time, I replied. Plenty of it. She laughed bitterly through her tears. You always were calm in the storm. I mocked that once. And now you're in one, I said softly. Irony works fast. Her hands trembled as she pulled a crumpled tissue from her purse. Ryan. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I hurt you. I hurt myself. I should have believed in you. I shook my head slowly. No, Lena. You shouldn't have believed in me. She looked up, startled. You should have believed in yourself, I said. If you had, you wouldn't have needed Daniel. Or me. She covered her face, sobbing quietly. I don't even know who I am anymore. You will, I said. Once you stop defining yourself by who stands next to you. For a long time, the only sound in the room was her uneven breathing. The woman who once stood above me, polished and proud, now sat broken, not by my success, but by her own choices. Do you hate me? She asked finally. No, I said. Hate would mean I still care enough to feel it. What I feel now is peace. She nodded, wiping her tears. You really did become everything I said you couldn't. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But not to prove you wrong. To prove myself right. Just then, the door opened slightly. Sophia peeked in, holding a folder. Her eyes landed on Lena, and for a second, the room tensed. "It's okay," I said. Sophia nodded silently, set the folder on my desk, and turned to leave, but not before meeting my eyes with quiet understanding. She didn't need an explanation. She never did. Lena followed her with her gaze. "Is she?" "She's part of my life now," I said. "Not because she filled your space, because she never asked for one." Lena's eyes filled again. "Does she know everything?" "She knows enough to never weaponize love." Her shoulders sagged. I really did lose the best thing that ever happened to me. "Maybe," I said. "But maybe this loss will help you find what you needed most, yourself." She looked at me helplessly. "Is there any chance, any part of you that's still?" I cut her off gently. "Lena, I stopped waiting for closure when I realized I could build it myself." She swallowed hard. "You've changed." "I had to," I said. "Pain either hardens you or heals you." I chose the latter. She looked down at her trembling hands. "Can I at least ask one favor?" "Depends on the question." "Don't remember me for how I left." I stood, walking around the desk until I was beside her. "I don't. I remember you for what you taught me." She looked up, eyes hopeful. "And what's that?" "That love without self-respect is just dependency," I said. "You taught me how painful love can be, and how peaceful self-respect feels." Her breath caught, and for a moment, I saw the woman I once loved, fragile, lost, but human. I walked her to the door. She paused, one hand on the handle. "I hope someday, someone loves me the way you did." "I hope someday," I replied, "you love yourself enough that you won't need someone to." She nodded faintly, then stepped into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind her, soft but final. Sophia entered again after a minute, setting 2 cups of coffee on the desk. "You okay?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I said, exhaling slowly. "It's strange, I thought this day would hurt more." She smiled. "Maybe that's what healing feels like." I looked out the window, sunlight pouring over the skyline. Maybe it is. For the first time in years, I didn't feel haunted. No bitterness. No resentment. Just quiet gratitude, for what ended, and for what began in its place. The lights were blinding, the applause deafening, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Standing on that stage, trophy in hand, I wasn't thinking about money or fame. I was thinking about every night I'd spent in silence, every insult that had turned into fuel. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, "please welcome the Entrepreneur of the Year, Ryan Carter." I stepped up to the podium. Cameras flashed, microphones pointed my way. For a second, I just breathed. "Thank you," I began. "This moment isn't about success, it's about survival." The room quieted. I once lost everything, love, money, self-worth. But losing myself would have been the real tragedy. A few people nodded, others leaned forward. I was told I was too simple, too small-minded. I believed it, until I realized simplicity isn't weakness. It's clarity. And clarity builds empires. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. I continued, "People will laugh when you dream. Let them. Their laughter becomes the sound of your motivation." Applause broke out. I smiled slightly, but my eyes drifted toward the back of the hall, and froze. Lena. She stood there quietly, half hidden behind the last row of guests. No makeup, no diamond necklace, no mask. Just Lena, watching, not with envy, but something closer to regret. For a moment, time folded. I saw the girl who once called me a disappointment. The woman who walked away without looking back. And now, the silent witness to everything she dismissed. I tightened my grip on the podium. "There's one more thing I want to say," I announced. The audience hushed again. "My wife once mocked my simplicity," I said, my voice calm, deliberate. "She left me for a millionaire. And now," I paused, letting the silence stretch, "I own his mansion." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. I smiled faintly. "But what I really gained," I added, "was peace." Applause thundered. Cameras flashed like lightning. But all I saw was Lena lowering her gaze, as if the words had landed somewhere deeper than pride. When the ceremony ended, reporters swarmed. "Ryan. What's next for Revive Tech? Ryan, any advice for young dreamers?" I smiled, answering politely, "Stay humble. Stay hungry." As I moved toward the exit, I caught sight of her again near the corridor. Our eyes met. She hesitated before stepping closer. "Congratulations," she said softly. "Thank you," I replied. "You really did it," she murmured. "Everything you said you would." "I just stopped talking and started doing," I said. She looked away. "I thought tonight would be harder to watch. Turns out, it's just painful to remember how blind I was." I exhaled. "We all have chapters we'd rather rewrite." She gave a sad smile. "You rewrote yours beautifully." "I didn't rewrite it," I said. "I just turned the page." Her eyes glistened. "Ryan. I'm glad you found peace." "I didn't find it," I corrected gently. "I built it, the same way I built everything else." She nodded slowly, then whispered, "Do you ever think of us?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "But not with longing. With gratitude." "For what?" she asked quietly. "For showing me who I never want to be again." That hit her. She blinked rapidly, holding back tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," I said. "And that's enough." Sophia approached then, graceful as ever, holding my coat. "Ready?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, taking it from her. Lena looked between us, reading everything unsaid. "She's good for you," she murmured. "She's good to me," I corrected. "There's a difference." Sophia smiled politely at her. "It's nice to finally meet you." Lena nodded. "You're lucky." "I am," Sophia replied softly. "But luck had nothing to do with it." Lena's lips parted, but no words came. I could see the weight of unspoken years pressing against her chest. As we turned to leave, she said, "Ryan." I stopped. "I hope you never forget where you came from." I smiled faintly over my shoulder. "That's the only reason I know where I'm going." Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. Cameras flashed again as we stepped into the car. Sophia glanced at me. "You handled that with grace." "I wasn't trying to," I said. "Grace just comes easier when you've already won the battle inside." She chuckled softly. "You really are the man who built himself." I looked out the window, city lights blurring into streaks of gold. "No," I said. "I just stopped letting others design me." For a moment, silence filled the car, peaceful, earned. Then Sophia reached over, resting her hand on mine. "You know, your speech tonight, it wasn't just about business." "I know," I said. "It was about freedom." She smiled. "And forgiveness?" "Maybe a little of that too," I said, watching the city shrink behind us. "But mostly about remembering that everything I lost was just clearing space for everything I was meant to build." The driver asked, "Home, sir?" I glanced at Sophia, then out the window toward the skyline, my skyline. "Yes," I said finally. "Take us home." As the car moved through the glowing streets, I felt a quiet satisfaction rise within me. Not pride. Not revenge. Just balance, the kind that comes when every wound has turned into wisdom. In the distance, my mansion's lights shimmered like a reflection of every late night, every humiliation, every moment I chose perseverance over bitterness. I whispered under my breath, I didn't just rebuild my life. I redesigned it. Sophia squeezed my hand gently. And that, she said, smiling, is what peace looks like. I smiled back, the city lights fading behind us, and for the first time, I felt complete.